Metcalf into pushing him when he said, "Touch me and see what happens." So the question here is, was this self-defense or was this deliberate? Did he intend to do this? What happened here? That is what the jury is going to have to decide on. Or was this a case of manslaughter, as we just mentioned, the lesser charge that was presented this morning to the jury that they could also consider?
And in a case like this, you talk about Bill Worski waiving his opening opportunity in closing arguments. That's a strategic move, right? Prosecutors, because the burden of proof is on the state, they get to open, the defense makes its close, and then they get to rebut that, to have the last word. He wanted to stack all of his time, so he deferred, if you will hold ours and reserve it and wait, so he could have this powerful and emotional planned close, which is what he did. That's what an attorney is supposed to do, to try to press their claim to the jurors. And the last voice you hear, maybe the last impression. And so we'll have to see what this jury decides. One of the interesting things, and I think we've talked about it a little bit on our air, is that Bill Worski and Toby Shook have worked together on some of the biggest cases. They were both prosecutors in the same time at the Dallas County District Attorney's Office.
Got a
some of the
verdict
most
reached
historic
in the
cases
Karmelo
in North
Anthony
Texas.
murder
They
trial.
worked on them together.
The
Even as
jury was
special
not deliberating for
prosecutors
very
for a case
long,
down in Kaufman County, where an assistant
I
district attorney
would
was
assume
assassinated.
means guilty
and
on all counts.
now they, on another historic case,
Probably
are at
took
opposite
longer
tables
deciding what they
in the
wanted to
courtroom.
eat for lunch.
And we will see how,
I would imagine.
how the jury decides, what
also riots
decision
in
they have
Belfast.
come to. We are waiting for them to announce their verdict. This case certainly got
Calling
national
from work?
attention. I mean, really from the very beginning.
Cash,
Whether
yeah.
you live in Texas
Yeah,
or
my
not, I
hair's-
think many
you
people have
haven't
heard
seen
about
me in a
this
minute?
case. We've seen national media
Need a fucking
come
haircut,
over to
yeah.
Collin County outside of the courtroom. We've seen TikTokers, YouTubers. I mean,
What
it
up,
has
Rebel
gained a
Yankee?
lot of interest. Again, these are two 17-year-old boys at the time. There was no evidence that they knew each other prior to this incident, but it has garnered a lot of attention, and so I think that is also part of the reason why you're seeing so many people out there. It has raised a lot of just emotions too.
And mainstream attention. New York Times, CNN, Fox News Channel, News Nation, all covering
Happens to the
this,
best
and
of
we've
us.
seen either
Hello, Corbusier.
family members of these folks involved, or those who are speaking for
Reading the
them all
weather.
across
What?
TV in the weeks leading up to this trial. Now, even though Judge imposed a gag order on those immediately involved, there have been those outside voices, those surrogate voices that have been speaking for both sides.
I honestly
along
don't
the
think
way.
we're going to get much
So with the
rioting
sheriff's deputies
here.
there now, the Collin County Sheriff's deputies, things have quieted
You know,
down.
of course, there's a
somewhat.
few
They were
crazies
there and
that are supporting
allowing
Karmelo,
people to have their
but I
voice.
think for the
Kind of
most
stepped
part,
up their presence as we're now getting closer.
they're not really
to
trying to
learning
prop
what that
him up
verdict
as some
is today.
hero.
Something that was interesting to me during this trial is,
I guess he wasn't,
and this seemed to have shocked
wasn't
some
enough
people
of a
too,
drug
is we
addict.
did not hear from Austin
As far as
Metcalf's
we
twin
know, he's
brother.
never
He
shot
did
a
not
pregnant
testify
woman.
during this trial. We also didn't hear from
Carmelo's a little too
Karmelo
clean
Anthony
cut of a black
either
guy
about this,
for
and
this
I
to
think
work.
that was probably strategic too in terms of not having them testify.
Well, first, since you mentioned Karmelo Anthony first, let's talk about that first. You cannot hold it against me if I don't testify in my own defense, even if my defense is self-defense. If my attorneys feel like
I appreciate the compliments on the
we
hair.
have proven our point, we have proven our position without your testimony.
Laziness.
Because remember, anytime you take the stand,
Who's
you
got
open
time
yourself
for a
up
haircut?
to cross-examination. And a skilled
In this
attorney,
economy?
no matter how innocent you may be, a skilled attorney can press his claim through you. As for Austin Metcalf's twin, I don't know that they felt like they
Uncle
needed
Rico
to bring
Austin.
that emotional wound to the surface to press their claim and prove their point to jurors. Through video, through tearful testimony of many of their 21 witnesses, I think folks relived that moment. We heard about how they were trying to do the chest compressions.
What
and we
up,
heard all of
Eyeball
that.
Paul?
I
Will
think
Burner?
they felt we don't need to bring him back through that and let him live through that moment. Remember, the family
Appreciate
members,
you,
as the medical
Corbusier.
examiner talked, as some of that testimony went forth, the family members of Metcalf left the courtroom.
Jay, I've
So
been
no need to
lazy
put him
since
through
94 and
that
ain't got
trauma
no hair.
in front of the jury. I
Well,
think they felt they were okay
Jay,
without that. And I think the defense felt the
That's
same
probably
thing.
a different issue.
That they were okay without Carmelo Anthony taking the stand.
And for people who are watching and
Exactly,
maybe
Portland
wondering
Cop.
too,
Getting a
the
haircut is
prosecution
gay.
called 21 witnesses. Initially, I believe 35 witnesses were expected, and the defense called a handful of witnesses. I think I've heard from different legal experts that the defense really
It's really
doesn't
not
even have
bad,
to call
Dr.
witnesses in this
Ray.
case. All of this falls on the prosecution side in terms of trying to prove that he is guilty. So that is why, if you think, oh, there's a disparity, why were there 21 witnesses on one side and a handful of witnesses on the other side? That is probably why you see a higher number on the prosecutor side.
Because he's
Well,
guilty?
sometimes less is better.
What?
Okay, we believe the jurors are back in the courtroom according to.
Here we go.
The families are in the courtroom. Okay. The judge is not yet on the bench. The families are now back in the courtroom. And, time is very flexible. There's something in Texas called legal time, lawyer time. And whatever it is, it's not what's on the clock on the wall.
I'm going to
So
leave
this
that
is a
one
big
alone.
moment, right?
It was
And this
it was
is going to be a moment for these
We'll
jurors.
leave it alone.
They've been brought into this. It's a supercharged case. Maybe they hadn't reached conclusions.
Oh, yeah,
and
he's
we
toast,
hope that they were
Captain Ed.
honest in voir dire, that they had not come to any conclusions about this case. Certainly, they heard about it to some extent. You can hear about a case and not make conclusions about
Really
it and still
quick
be a great
deliberation.
juror.
And they also
we
had
pray that's
lunch.
so,
I
but
assume they walked
they've
into the
been in
room,
this
all said he's guilty,
crucial.
right?
They know
yeah,
what's
but hey,
happening
let's at
outside.
least get our free lunch.
They know the pressure on this. And so we'll
And they
soon
probably took
hear
longer deciding what to have for lunch
the verdict in this
than
case.
they did on his guilt.
We'll soon hear the verdict.
Yes, we should. As we've talked about this, this has gotten national attention, which is why so many people have come out to protest,
guess in 20 years?
on whichever
I guess it's
side
gonna
that they're
depend.
on, to whether
they
it's
opened
to
up
defend
the
Austin
lesser charge
Metcalf
of
or Carmelo
manslaughter just
Anthony,
this
and
morning,
so
which I
it
found
looks
odd.
like things have certainly calmed down.
So
That was not
it
the case
depends
when
if
we
they find him guilty
got
of
on
the murder charge
about
or
20
if they
minutes
give him
ago
the
or so.
lesser
So I guess
manslaughter
that's good
charge.
news there that things are
That'll
starting to
depend how
calm
much
down.
time he gets.
But we're going to see, how all of this plays out. And we'll go from there. This was a 12-person jury. 600 people were part of that
Right,
initial
Aaron,
jury
an
selection.
all-white
They narrowed
jury
it
that
down to
isn't
12
all
people.
white at all.
And over the course of
There's-
2.5
there's
days, the prosecution
Latinos,
called 21 witnesses.
Asians.
The defense called a handful of witnesses. And so now it is
But
this,
if you ain't
this
black,
case is
you
really in
white.
the hands of this jury. It is up to them. They have
know
made
that.
their decision. And so we are patiently awaiting to find out what that decision is.
Yeah,
What have
in
they
fact,
decided?
It's done now. They've made their decision. They've come to a verdict. And we'll soon hear that. And then the punishment phase, sentencing phase will begin. And Austin Metcalf's brother is in the courtroom next to his mom right now. And so this has been an emotional burden for all involved. All these kids are good kids. They all had good grades. They all have bright
Burner,
futures.
thank you for the super
And
chat.
In
Hong,
a
Hong,
moment,
Hong.
whatever happened under
You
that
excited
tent
for the
has
riot
derailed a
coverage
number
that'll
of
follow
lives
this?
here.
I think it was also
yeah.
during the trial, people
I'm
talked about how
skeptical on how
emotional it was. I
much
think you mentioned this
riot
too,
we're gonna
Sean,
get
that
from this.
having to see the surveillance footage, having to see just what unfolded in the moments
this Texas
after.
town will shut it down quick.
This,
Now, that
this
doesn't
altercation,
mean
this interaction between these
the
two
other liberal
17-year-old
cities won't
students. And
glom
so,
onto this and,
this
give them
is
any
probably,
reason, right?
I would imagine, emotionally taxing for both sides, for both families, and to just consider that a lot of these friends who were part of the track team who went to school with both students, it's got to be very emotional for them as well to be a part of this and to witness all of this play out. So we will see, what the jury has decided momentarily.
Right, Jay,
Again,
yeah,
we were
these are
expecting
not
for that decision to be
2020
announced
numbers,
at 2:05.
half of
It is
these people
2:20
are
right
press
now. So
or
they're a little
TikTokers.
bit late, right? We're a little
Maybe-
bit 15
maybe
minutes behind
like
schedule, but I
70,
think
80% of them are
that sometimes
press
happens
and
in these kinds of
TikTokers.
cases.
Right, and so we're really not late. If we thought
Yeah,
it
we
would
do
come
have
at
action in
2:05, it could come
Belfast.
at any time now. We know it's coming. We do know it's coming. Families have returned to the
Those
courtroom.
guys are crazy
I can tell
over
you there are sweaty palms, there are sweaty foreheads, hearts are racing. Everyone in that courtroom, on
What else
either
is
side,
sweaty?
everyone in that
Who is
courtroom
this
has
guy?
the same kind of anxiety
Someone said it's
at this moment
Al Roker
as they
wannabe.
wait for words that will echo in their hearts and minds
Al Roker reject.
long beyond today.
And there was question about, okay, well, how long is this jury going to deliberate for? That was a question this morning we were wondering, right? Because this was kind of their first time really talking to each other about what the evidence that was presented to them, right? So this is their first time, saying, well, I thought this, or I thought that, or what did you make of this? And so really for them to come to a conclusion, to come to a decision within 3 hours of deliberating, I thought, okay, that's fairly soon. Maybe we'll expect it later this evening or tomorrow, but it sounds like they have come to a consensus.
Sure, and really there's no formula for how juries work. Over my years, I've had an opportunity to interview a number of jurors. Oftentimes, they'll return to the jury room and immediately take a vote to find out where they are in the room, and then they start working through evidence or questions
right,
or talking
Ryan,
out loud amongst themselves from there to see which way they move, if they move at all. So we don't know where they started, but we do know starting deliberations at 10:52 and then getting word when we did a little after 1, I guess, that
unfortunately
they reached a
death
verdict.
penalty is not
They
on
weren't
the
too
table,
far apart,
Merchant Ben.
whichever direction they're in.
On the table.
And they weren't too far apart. It didn't take
I
that
guess
much longer
because he was a
to
minor
get there.
when it occurred.
We'll see if any of the jurors talk after all of this is over as well. It is 2:22 now, and we are waiting for the verdict to be announced in the Karmelo Anthony murder trial in Collin County.
That's right. The jury was able to consider manslaughter as a lesser charge. Initially, Karmelo Anthony was facing a first-degree murder charge. So now is this manslaughter or is this first degree? Manslaughter implies that this was just a reckless killing that kind of, in that spur of the moment, in fear maybe of his safety, he felt that he was in danger and he decided to defend himself. That is what the defense is arguing. Murder includes the intent. Was this intentional? Did he mean to do this? There were some people who asked the question of why did he bring a knife to a track meet? And there were some more details that were brought out about that knife.
Unintentionally plunge a knife into someone's
Lori
heart.
Brown is in the courtroom, and she is able to send out messages, and she is saying to us now that the attorneys are talking to the family members, and she believes that the attorneys are preparing the family members of the victims' families, the defendants' families, not to react to whatever that verdict might be. Judges don't like emotional outbursts in the courtroom, and it's important that families try and contain themselves. That's not easy. It's not easy, but that's probably what's happening now. And she says Karmelo Anthony, she believes, has his head down. She can't see his face. He's looking down. You might imagine, again, as I mentioned, sweaty palms, heart is racing, breath is short, because lives are in the balance.
It's a heart-pounding moment and kind of in limbo, waiting to find out what the verdict is. It looks like we have someone joining us on Zoom, Russell Wilson. Russell, thank you for joining us here. We are waiting for that verdict to be announced.
After that, it might be a bad night to be a Wendy's.
What do you make of the fact that, the jury has been deliberated for 3 hours. So they reached a decision just before 2 o'clock. Just in your experience, what do you make of them coming to this decision fairly soon?
I think, it would be consistent with there not being much disagreement among the 12 jurors. It wouldn't necessarily take very long to resolve those disagreements. And so I think it was really kind of a narrow issue, if you will. There wasn't really a doubt about, who done it and how it happened or any of those types of things. And so perhaps based off of what they heard, jurors had a strong feeling one way or another. Eventually that came to a unanimous verdict.
Russell, it's Sean. Let's go in on what the two narrow really questions are. Narrow questions.
Yeah, I think one of them would have been, did they believe this was murder or manslaughter? And then if they did believe that it was either one of those crimes, did they believe that it was justified? And that, viewed from the standpoint of Karmelo Anthony. And, they had throughout the trial extensive testimony regarding really an incident that took place, very quickly in a matter of seconds. And so when they're sitting there as jurors, even though they're not deliberating, they themselves are forming at least individual opinions regarding the evidence. And so the first time that you actually deliberate as a whole
long-lost son
is in jury deliberations. But when you're sitting there through a trial and you hear testimony, it has to cause you to form an opinion or some thought one way or another. And so you're trying to keep your mind open as to things. And usually your mind is working your way through to one way or another regarding how you feel about the case. And then the judge provides the law, and the law then either affirms what your thoughts are. And so I think that was probably what was happening here. Again, in the scope of issues that cases could have, even though this is a nationally watched case, the issues are kind of narrow.
Right. And you've talked to many of your jurors, both as a prosecutor and defense attorney. Do you find they retire to that jury room and, Russell, they kind of do a straw poll to see where they are on guilt or innocence, and then they start really deliberating and look at facts or evidence or revisit testimony from that point forward, if need be?
Right. Yeah, I think usually the first thing they do is select a four-person, and then they usually talk about that. They may spend time going back over the jury instructions again, which wouldn't take very long. And then if you take a straw poll or a vote and you see where people are at on issues, then you may ask a person why they felt this way or that way. And then if their recollection of events is different, or the reason that they feel one way or another is different, somebody may point out something in the law or something in the evidence that might cause the person to view it a different way. And that's kind of how deliberations proceed. And there's usually a few folks that we would characterize as followers, meaning that they based off of their disposition, are more likely to follow a person who's firm in their belief. And so that usually, is how deliberations proceed. There's a person or persons that are firm, and then other individuals have to either be as equally firm for the verdict not to be reached, or they have to be open to a discussion. And over the course of that discussion, the firmer the person's belief is, then the more likely the verdict is going to go that person's way.
Okay, and so we understand now that the jurors are being brought in, and we don't have a lot of time to go into more about the minds of jurors, but you want both firm and followers on any jury.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
I guess before we go to that, we're waiting to find out what the decision is. Let's talk a little bit about this trial in terms of, we did get more insight in terms of why Karmelo Anthony was under the tent, that he had a friend, that it was raining, he went for cover. But the defense never explained why he brought this pocket knife. It was just a small knife, 3.5 inches, why he brought it to the track meet. Do you think that in terms of, on the defense's side, was that a missed opportunity in terms of not explaining why he had that with him? Is that something that they should have gotten into, or is this a case of less is more?
I think they ultimately decided that less was more. I think their point was it was lawful to have it, and risking a violation of school policy was indifferent. When you think of a person having a knife, the knife is displayed, and jurors have to form a belief if they think that knife can be used for other utility purposes, or if it's there exclusively to be used as a weapon. So in the range of knives, if you will, one of the things is that the knife was less than 5.5 inches, which suggests that under Texas law, not suggest, it is actually legal to carry it there. But it suggests that it also could have other potential uses.
And of course, not having the knife cleaned
Carmelo
leaving the dry
Anthony's
blood on
mother
the knife
walked into the courtroom
lends to
with
the mind and
tears in
imagination
her
of the
eyes.
jurors those
That's
other
from,
uses.
Mary Ann Martinez,
Right,
who's in the
right,
courtroom
right. I think
now.
that, they decided that regardless of the reason, it did not sound like it was for purposes of a confrontation with the person that he didn't know he was going to be into a confrontation with on that day. So I think certainly you want to try to answer every question you can,
Right.
but every answer comes with risk as well. If Karmelo had testified, he certainly could have been cross-examined, and it might have been an opportunity for the state to go back through in a different way the events as they unfolded from his seat. So I think they weighed that out and decided against it.
Lori Brown is telling us now that Judge Roach is on the bench and said that we are now on the record to bring in the jury, warning those in the courtroom any outburst, a person will be held in contempt. Defense Attorney Mike Howard standing with his arms on Karmelo Anthony, and they are standing now waiting for the jury to enter the jury box with the verdict.
So at any moment, we will hear what that verdict is. Again, if you are just joining us right now, the jury started deliberating at 10:52 this morning. They reached a decision a little before 2. And so we were waiting for that verdict to be announced at 2:05. It is 2:32 right now. Sometimes, these things take a while in terms of getting everybody into the courtroom, explaining the rules. Our Lori Brown telling us that any outburst, a person will be held in contempt. So just kind of
they were very strict
letting
on
them know
even
what the rules
reporters
are,
people in the room.
just so that they have rules in place and they want people to follow.
Mostly, we were
those
getting
rules.
reports of what happened after they were let out.
It says here, Lori is telling us, we, the jury, find the defendant guilty of murder.
Murder.
That is the verdict from the
Guilty of
jurors,
murder.
according to Lori Brown, who is in the courtroom.
Okay, we're hearing that
not
first.
manslaughter.
Guilty
of murder.
We are finding that out.
And I think Russell
Going to
Wilson,
prison, possibly
with the
for
brevity
life.
of this deliberation, I don't think that's a surprise to many people.
Well, right. So, I mean, what we know is that
this
they
shouldn't
rejected
be
the
a surprise.
self-defense claim.
Although
They
these days you just
believed
never know.
that the use of deadly force in response to the shove was excessive, and that's not necessarily a surprise based off of the totality of the circumstances. So I think that was their verdict.
Now we'll see what happens with this jury in the punishment phase.
Could get out in 80 years,
Right.
guys.
So we're probably going to see a brief break, and the
Is that
parties
him walking out right now? That's got to be old footage, right? Shouldn't they
get
be
a chance
taking him
to
into
gather
custody right now?
themselves, if you will, and the judge would have to decide if he wanted to go ahead and begin the punishment phase
Are they letting him out?
of the case.
What?
Maybe in 15, 20 minutes or so, or if he wanted a break. Given that
think
he's
that was old
got the
footage.
jurors sequestered, I think that they will get back started on testimony probably relatively quickly.
Let me ask you a question. You have a client who is
Clippy, we don't know what
teenager
jewels are.
who's a 3.8
We have no
GPA,
idea.
has no bad record, has no juvenile history, has no engagement with law enforcement, has made this decision that has left him guilty of murder. How do you work in the punishment phase? What do you try to do to...
Blackvar!
I mean, I
Hung,
think
hung.
you gotta first you.
I guess
you
I
wanna
suppose today
console
could be
your
the
client,
official start of White
and
Boy
the
Summer.
family briefly, but you're gonna have to quickly turn to your anticipated punishment evidence, which is going to be the state again going
Sure,
first.
Clippy.
You're gonna hear
Send them
more
my way.
character
I guess I'll figure out
information.
what they are.
It takes a while when you get an adverse
popped up,
verdict
like, on the last
for
stream.
the person
We don't
to
know.
really accept and understand it. The state may be moving to have his bond held insufficient, meaning that if
Blackjack,
he
what
walked
up,
in
man?
the courthouse
Welcome
today, that he won't be
Yeah, if
walking
you ever
out
hear
tonight.
of unrest going
Your
on,
client's going to have a whole lot of
come check out the
anxiety.
channel.
The range of punishments 5 to 99 years. When you hear
Yeah,
a guilty
UK
verdict
the
of
UK
murder, you're
and
certainly going to see your
Belfast.
life flash before you.
London
Because
and
you
Belfast
recognize you could
could
face
get spicy
imprisonment
this
for the
evening.
rest of your life. The attorney, if you get everybody calmed down, you need to start thinking of
Noir,
your most
right?
mitigating factors.
Right?
Probably here
Grateful
will
for a
be
little
age
justice.
of the offender and no criminal history.
All right, so we are following this breaking news right here as a jury
Appreciate
has
you, Clippy.
just announced that Karmelo Anthony, they have found him guilty of murder. This is a live look right here from outside of the courthouse. And earlier, we did see some very tense moments between folks there outside of the courthouse. That's when law enforcement stepped in. But this is the scene right now, moments after a jury came back inside the courtroom and stated that they have found Karmelo Anthony guilty of murder. As we continue to follow this breaking news, I do want to bring in legal analyst and attorney Jeremy Rosendahl, who has been following this case since it began. And Jeremy, we appreciate you joining us here on Live Now from Fox.
Thank you for having me, Stephanie.
So I want to start with the fact that the jury deliberated for just about 3 hours, coming back with the verdict, guilty of murder. And they had the opportunity to also find Karmelo Anthony not guilty or guilty of manslaughter. As we take a look at this verdict, what is your initial reaction?
Karmelo Anthony and his team got all of the jury charges that they asked for. They asked for manslaughter. They asked for self-defense. And clearly a big victory for the prosecution in this case. The Collin County DA's office put a lot of effort and a lot of resources into this, and obviously a very severe disappointment for Karmelo Anthony and his team. When you're defending a case, I'm a firm believer in what you might call compromised verdicts, meaning that I feel like jurors really don't like giving one side a complete victory over another. You see things about runaway juries and big jury verdicts and things like that. In plaintiff cases, those are really the exception and not the rule. So the more questions you pose to a jury, the more chances that they have to come back and say, well, we don't agree with you on this, we don't agree with you on this, but we agree with you on this. So here, Karmelo Anthony and his team had two functional exit ramps, if you will, here in the verdict. One being self-defense, the other being manslaughter. The jury didn't take either. You still have one decision left, which is the punishment verdict. It's still possible that the punishment is a low one or a lower one. He's looking at 5 years to 99 years in prison or life. The range on a manslaughter would have been 2 to 20. So those overlap. So it's not over for his defense team, and certainly they had an eye towards punishment and that verdict. So that's what we're going to see next.
Yeah, and speaking of the sentencing phase, how quickly might we find out what that sentence could be?
So what's going to happen now is, as you may have heard if you were watching, so in all likelihood, Karmelo Anthony's bond is going to be held insufficient probably right now. And what that means is that he would be taken into custody and that he's not going home tonight. He was on bond before that bond is no longer good. So he would be taken into custody. The court may recess for the day. They may not. It's 2:30 Texas time. So the judge may say, send everybody home. The judge may want to go directly into the punishment phase. The punishment phase is its own distinct phase of trial. The prosecutor.
Come here. So just watch right here. Come in between the cop cars. They just came out of the courthouse. And when you ask, what's the reaction like?
Is that the family? Karmelo Anthony's
obviously,
family?
they just came out of the courthouse. A lot of emotion. Guilty, first-degree murder. And you know what? You watch this, and then you still got to think too.
The verdict is in, here, Snake. So, I should change
Connell,
the.
I say that. I'll send it back to you, and I'll just stay with the live images, and I'll report back if anything happens. But so much raw emotion here on the ground.
as we see some folks here making their way out of the courthouse and now being embraced by supporters outside.
Yeah, family has been coming out.
Let's continue to listen in.
These folks, not family though. Actually, the lady in the plaid pants, I remember her from this morning. She was actually the very last person to get into that general public. She was the last of the 27 people to be in the courtroom. But yeah, we've seen family come out this way. And obviously, you saw them come out with tears in their faces. And a lot of emotions, a lot of
low Q.
just angry, pure anger to just sadness, Connell.
I'm just gonna expose it. I told you 10 years.
Yeah, Connell, so that was the back and forth. And when you ask that question, what happens when you have the two sides together? Obviously, they're going to butt heads. And it was an Austin Metcalf family supporter. And then you just saw a wave of what was Karmelo Anthony supporters. And you saw that back and forth. And what it appeared to be was just that entire group going after one person, one gentleman with a hat on. Law enforcement was there the whole time, but still, he wasn't backing down. Neither were those people here that are obviously in support of Karmelo Anthony. And that's why the crowd went that way.
Okay, from the reporter inside. Here we go. Okay. Karmelo Anthony breaks down in tears as he heard the verdict. We have not taken a break. Karmelo has been walked out of the court. Karmelo's mother was also sobbing in her seat. An extraordinary moment just now. Karmelo's lawyer asked if he could take his client somewhere to pull himself together. Judge responded that Karmelo has been found guilty and is now in the custody of the sheriff. Things move differently now, the judge said. The judge did allow Karmelo to be escorted out of the room by deputies and lawyers. We're taking a little break.
When you're out here and you see all these people, you've been here every day, I know. When you hear that verdict read, I saw you break down to the ground. What's going through your heart? What's going through your head right now?
Why do we have to care anymore? Why are we even here? To be honest, why are we here? What are we here for? Because if we
Find him
take up
guilty
for
of
ourselves,
murder.
we go to jail. If we don't, we die. So it's a catch-22 in this situation. What do you want us to do? What do you want us to do at this point? What? I'm
Don't
lost for it. I
stab
don't know what
people.
to do. I got 5 boys. I don't know what. I ain't got nothing to tell them no more. You can't walk away no more.
Rest in peace, Trayvon Martin.
If Carmelo Anthony had walked
I
away,
hear the frustration. Are you more angry
then
or more
Austin
sad as to
Metcalf
what
would
just
be
happened?
alive.
I'm angry and I'm hurt.
And
I'm
he
angry
wouldn't
because
be going to jail for the rest of his life.
Those witnesses were lying on
Absolutely
him.
should tell your children to
You got
walk
the
away.
judge friends with the prosecutor. Let's start there. The judge was falling asleep. Some juries was falling asleep and didn't even have a damn notepad. Y'all didn't take this shit seriously.
All right, Austin, come this way because it looks like the crowd is moving, and we're just gonna, Connell, stay with us as the crowd kind of goes this way. We're just gonna kind of make sure, come this way. So, excuse me, sir, is this the Anthony family?
We love y'all.
So, Connell.
I want to go talk to them. They're going to go over there in the grass.
Okay.
Not out here in the road.
So it looks like family is leaving right now.
You did a damn good job representing him.
So this is the Anthony family representation.
Connell,
Connell, he's been speaking on behalf of the family.
Justice happened here.
I got you, Connell.
Today. In the grass. In the grass. Today. Y'all go in there for me. Okay, well, y'all get close to the curb. Let me get in here.
Oh, this should be good. Here we go.
When everybody's sick.
Oh, the justice system isn't fair. Whitey rigged the system.
So that I can be able to.
Before the family departs, it appears that they will be speaking here to the media as cameras gather around.
I will say this one time, and one time only. I speak on behalf of myself, Minister Dominique Alexander. I speak on behalf of myself as president of the Next Generation Action Network. The Next Generation Action Network wanted to respect this process. to be able to make sure that nobody said that the Next Generation Action Network is this process, feared in this process. But what this process did is shown that black lives do not matter in Collin County. It showed us that time and time in American history, it has shown emotions.
Of course, this interview is not really working.
It would appear the feed is frozen. We're working on getting it back online.
Well,
We're
I
also
do
queuing
think
up your
this
comments,
deserves
to give everybody a voice out of the comment
zoning.
section across.
Get in the zone, Austin zone.
It showed clearly that a judge interfered in this process. It showed very clearly that a black boy was allowed, not one black soul on a jury. And all
they're gonna harp on
white
that.
jury
No black people on the jury.
convicted him in 2 to 3 hours. We know that they did not prove their case. They are currently sentencing Karmelo Anthony, but we know that the Next Generation Action Network put the first $10,000 towards an appellate attorney. And we will fight Collin County
they're gonna
like hell.
They're gonna try to raise so much money.
I respected this process.
Low Q.
I allowed and
Zoned.
called for peace in this process. But black America should be very upset about what went on today. Now, before all of the internet lawyers and before all of the interpretation of the situation, I'm only an advocacy leader. I'm not an attorney. I can only help families be able to navigate these processes when they find themselves in this type of situation. I can only allow lawyers to be what they are, lawyers. I can't instruct them. I can't stop them from doing anything. I have to respect the process just like anybody else. But what we saw today was flawed, unjust, and I ask that the community continue to pray for the Anthony family. I do not speak for them, but I know that the Next Generation Action Network will be here as support. My heart hurts right now.
How many times is he going to say the name of his network?
Because ignorance of the law was done here today. Clear. We posted the jury instructions. And right now, what we are seeing is a travesty. It lets us that black lives do not matter in the criminal justice system. It lets us know that we are not going to be afforded the same laws as anybody else. And I give a damn about nobody that feels like I'm playing the race card here. For 400 years, our people have been at the liberty and have had to suffer at the liberty of these laws. I'm speaking facts because that blood of slavery is in my blood, not your blood. And it's not for you to look at me and say, I'm playing the race card. I'm just a black man living in America. The fact supports that. You say I'm upset? Hell yeah, I'm upset. I respected this process.
He's going to be raising money.
But we're going to fight like hell to make sure that Collin County know that Karmelo Anthony is not going to go away. I want to thank all of the people who traveled across this country, to all of the media's community supporters and people who have taken Karmelo Anthony as their own baby. I salute you, I thank you, and we got work to do. Thank you and God bless.
All right, Connell, so you heard that. He's representing, at least speaking for the Anthony family, Connell.
He literally said he doesn't speak for the Anthony family.
But obviously, fight is not over for the Anthony side of things.
Why does this guy look so sad?
We'll stay here with the News Nation feed. Just listen in. Okay, so it looks like the News Nation reporter here is going to be moving on over. Let's keep audio down here a little bit as we pay attention to some of the scenes here outside of the Collins County Courthouse where, of course, Karmelo Anthony was.
Some poor choices, that this is subject to review. And so I'm certainly happy to see on the television here, on the screen, that the live feed, that it's a civil atmosphere out there. That's the way I think everybody wants this.
Absolutely. Jeremy Rosenthal, as always, we appreciate you joining us here on Live Now from Fox.
Thank you, Stephanie.
So the sentencing phase now underway for Karmelo Anthony after a jury found him guilty of murder. This is a live look outside of the courthouse. As you can see, extensive police presence, as we did see tensions flare before that verdict was handed down. For more on this, we are going to turn back to our Fox 4 Dallas team as they continue our coverage.
On the question of murder.
And it looks like we are hearing from Karmelo Anthony's mother. I believe she has taken the stand. So she is saying, she was asked, do you believe he regrets it? She says, yes, I know
Here's
my
a protest
son. He
in
is
London
very
going
sorry
on
for
in
what
the
he
top
did.
left.
Please have mercy on my son. And then she was asked, like any mothers, you love your son. She says, yes, regardless of what happens, you realize he will still get to be part of your life. Yes. So again, she is asking, for this punishment phase, for the jury, for everybody to consider that he is remorseful, which also was expressed during testimony.
According to the reporter in the courtroom, Karmelo is back in the room now. Jury will return, and we will begin the sentencing part of the trial now. The jurors have to decide between 5 and 99 years in prison. So I guess that'll starts now. Usually that, comes at a later date, but they're really going through this trial fast.
In the punishment phase, and no one can ask you to have mercy for the life of another person like a mother.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
She's pouring everything she has into this plea. She's literally begging people at this moment to give her son a chance at life at some point in the future.
Mm-hmm. And again, he's looking at 5 years to 99 years in prison. So we will see what is decided. Lori is saying that the jury is out. They can't deliberate until they get the charge. So we'll see.
So this is another little surprise. I think we all thought there would be more testimony in the punishment phase. I anticipated that we might now hear from Hunter Metcalf about the loss of his twin brother. Not only were they twins, they were best friends. Thought we might would hear from him. Thought we would hear more about who Karmelo Anthony is in the life that he could have rehabilitated. I thought we might hear more of that, but only hearing from his mother now in the punishment phase. And so the jury could come back today once they get the charge. They have to get the charge, which will tell them, here's the range of punishment. Here's what you can do now.
And I think because, Metcalf's brother, Hunter, did not testify before the jury reached its verdict, and because we did not hear from Karmelo Anthony's mother before all of this, we thought perhaps, saving these family members for this stage of this case. And it looks like, they decided we're just going to hear from one person and we're going to move along. Which is really how it feels like the whole trial has been. I mean, they've been on a tight schedule.
Yes, it has moved along. And, there were some folks out loud questioning, should a trial of this gravity go so fast? Who were supporters of both sides. It wasn't just one side saying that. People were concerned about the pacing and whether there was pressure on the jurors from the very beginning, knowing that we're going to be done by the 12th, you're going to be sequestered. Was that unfair pressure? But the jurors, from what we know, based on what our reporters in the courtroom have said to us, they seem to handle the pressure in the moment extremely well.
And court is in recess right now, so we'll see. Again, Karmelo Anthony is looking at 5 years to 99 years in prison. He was 17 years old when all of this took place. Important to also note that, both Austin Metcalf and Karmelo Anthony were teenagers at the time of all this. They were 17. But because the state of Texas treats 17-year-olds as adults, in the criminal justice system. That is why Karmelo Anthony is being tried as an adult. And so we found out not long ago that he was found guilty of murder, which was also interesting because, again, earlier this morning, the manslaughter charge was on the table as well for the jury to consider, and they decided to still go with that first-degree murder.
Now, it's not uncommon for a lesser included, as it's called, charge to be added at the time that juries began deliberation. The defense wanted criminal negligent homicide included in place of manslaughter, to which the judge said no. That would carry even a lesser sentence. So none of that is a surprise, really. His bond will be held insufficient. It is very, very rare that you have found guilty of murder and you're able to go home from the courtroom. So I would anticipate him going into custody today. But at the rate they're going, with the jury on recess now, with the charge being prepared, before 6 o'clock tonight, we could very well have punishment handed down and for Karmelo Anthony, and he would be in the control of the Collin County Sheriff's Department until which time the Texas Department of the prison system, they come and get him and take him to a prison farm where he would begin.
And he's looking at quite a range, like we said, 5 years to 99 years in prison. Maybe the jury will consider the fact that he does not have a criminal history outside of this. That, both of these students did well academically, that he did well academically. He did not have any other history of committing any other crimes. So I think the question here, too, is, which side of the spectrum are we looking at? Our Amelia Jones has also been covering this as part of our Nightside shift. She's been covering this trial. Amelia, can you just set the scene? Just tell us, where exactly are you? What are you seeing? What are you hearing from your sources? Just kind of fill us in on what's going on.
Absolutely, Eden and Sean. I'm just here on the sidewalk, just right outside the Collin County Courthouse. You can see the line of law enforcement behind me. They have not approached the crowd at all. They are staying right beyond the perimeter here, but obviously making their presence known. Now, I haven't personally seen any clashes between groups of supporters here. We've mainly seen people kind of gather in collective groups and then kind of share their thoughts or, any chance with each other. We know that this case has just taken on a life of its own, for a lack of a better phrase, on social media. So there are a lot of people that are live streaming right now on the various social media platforms. We also hear people on a loudspeaker. There's a speaker that was playing gospel music. As you heard Alex share earlier, there were some prayer circles and gospel words and songs that were shared before the verdict was reached. I did get a chance to speak to one man who told me that he does not know either party. He was not in the courtroom for any of the testimony. He came out today to just see what justice would look like here and what the jury would decide, and he told me there is no winning on either side. He said, obviously, the Metcalf family have lost their son. Nothing can bring Austin Metcalf back. And then on the other side, Karmelo Anthony will now be taken away from his family, and the jury is deciding right now what that sentence will look like. And so I will say, when the verdict was first announced and the word and the decision was kind of spreading through the crowd, there was a lot of unhappiness, especially in the crowd and group of people where I was. We know that Karmelo Anthony supporters have worn purple, and there was a lot of purple out here. And a lot of people, they did not hide their unhappiness with that verdict, but they have remained here. And again, kind of gathering with each other, sharing some of their thoughts with the media. We also see some supporters. Someone behind the camera right here has a Justice for Austin sign. And I know my photographer, Andy, was able to speak with him. And so we are getting reaction from both sides out here. But so far, things have remained pretty calm. Again, there's been no physical confrontation confrontations, no clashes, at least that I've seen from my perspective, but you do see the law enforcement presence. And also, before that verdict was read, I could see law enforcement right up against the doors of the Collin County Courthouse, seemingly just in case anyone was going to run up those courthouse steps and potentially try to rush in. So they were really prepared here for this, but no law enforcement has come in contact with the crowd. They are really keeping their distance, keeping their eyes peeled. But so far things have remained peaceful, but the crowds have not died down at all. With that, I'll send it back to you guys. That's what I'm seeing out here live.
Thank you. And again, excellent work covering this trial where our politicians are now weighing in. And, typically you don't see politicians weighing in on local murder trials. You don't bring politics into this mix, but that's what we're seeing happen. State Representative Jared Patterson posting a statement on the murder conviction of Austin Metcalf's killer. There it is, as you can see it. It reads in part that the murder of Austin Metcalf was a senseless and heartbreaking tragedy that forever changed the lives of his family, friends, and community.
The jury
All of that
was
is true.
deliberating
Nothing can restore the life
about
that was
3
taken or
hours.
ease the unimaginable
2 to 3
pain
hours.
of losing
Of course,
a
that was
child.
over lunch,
Today's
so,
outcome of a murder conviction
maybe
is
they
justice
deliberated for 5
served.
minutes and then ate
then
an hour
Jeff
or 2
Leach
hour lunch.
also posting on social media, on X, Karmelo Anthony
I don't think we'll
guilty
get
of murdering
riots,
Austin
but if
Metcalf.
we do,
the right decision.
I'm here for it.
Justice delivered. And so it is, I believe you said earlier, or may have been Alex who talked about this being historic. It is a sad and historic case that will always be talked about, reviewed, and looked at here in North Texas.
Absolutely. And, since we've been covering this trial, obviously no cameras were allowed in the courtroom. And so we've been relying heavily on our crew. Our Lori Brown is inside of the courtroom. And so she explained, she was describing what was going on as Karmelo Anthony's mother took the stand. And she just added, just kind of painting the picture of what's going on inside. And she said the mother's statements were tearful. That she was emotional. She was telling the jury to really, have mercy for her son. And so that also paints the picture of just how distraught she is. And so I think you had mentioned this on both sides, right? So there's one side that is very emotional and another side that feels this was the right call, that this murder charge, this murder conviction, rather, was what Karmelo Anthony deserved.
And I have to tell you, Lori Brown and Alex Boyer took us into that courtroom every single day. They were the eyes and ears of viewers here in North Texas, capturing the moments that mattered the most during the hours of testimony in that courtroom. Judges have their own discretion about whether to have cameras in the courts or not at the state level, and Collin County has limited media access, not just this trial. There have been others that have been high profile. They've sometimes allowed cameras, sometimes not. Not with the same. Every judge has their own discretion. Many feel like cameras should have been in the courtroom because of the gravity of this case, both sides so divided. At any rate, Alex and Lori did a wonderful job capturing the testimony and bringing that to us.
Absolutely. So we're going to wrap up here on air, but we're going to continue our coverage over on Fox Local. So if you want to stream along with us, be sure to download the Fox Local app, and we're going to continue to monitor what's going on outside of the courtroom, the courthouse, and also what's going on inside of the courtroom.
All right, so we were just listening in to Fox 4 Dallas's coverage there, as we have just learned in the Karmelo Anthony trial that he is found guilty of murder. This ex-post coming from Fox News saying, breaking news, a jury has found Texas teenager Karmelo Anthony guilty of murder and the stabbing death of Austin Metcalf at a high school track meet last year. A murder conviction carries a maximum sentence of 5 to 99 years or life in prison. The verdict came just 3 hours after deliberations began, and Anthony now faces up to 99 years or life in prison. So if you're just joining us here on Live Now from Fox, my name is Anna Marsick. We just had this breaking news come in. A live look right now of an aerial shot outside the Collin County Courthouse where that verdict was just read. We have
Most
learned
of
that
these
jurors
people are
found
press.
Karmelo Anthony guilty of murder for fatally stabbing 17-year-old Austin Metcalf at a 2025 track meet. Prosecutors labeled the fatal stadium stabbing a provoked, unjustified
All right, we'll do a
sneak
poll for
attack
riot
inside a
odds.
team
It's a good idea,
tent,
Paco.
while the defense countered that it was a split-second action in self-defense out of fear and chaos. So Karmelo Anthony now faces a maximum sentence of 5 to 99 years in prison, and jurors just reached that verdict today. So as you can see this aerial shot there outside the Collin County Courthouse there in Texas, you can see a heavy police presence there, and a lot of people are gathered around. And if you were with us when we were listening into Fox 4's coverage, we heard the reporters on the ground talking about the atmosphere there as people are reacting to this verdict being read. And people who are standing outside the courtroom there also actually gave some reactions. So we wanted to play out some of that for you here on Live Now from Fox. Take a listen. This is somebody moments after that verdict was read reacting to it.
Hi, sir. I understand you're from McKinney here? Yes. Okay. So have you been following along the trial all these 4 days?
I have. Yes, ma'am.
And so with this verdict coming down, I understand it's obviously made some people here in the crowd a little unhappy. Any initial reactions here? You look a little somber, if I'm being honest.
I mean, I just tell people this, man, is until you've been in this situation, you don't know how anybody's feeling. You know what I'm saying? And it's not, this is a no-win situation on either side, you know. You have a child that
admin, yeah. I think Karmelo really did think he was going to get off on this.
And to the family,
that's what everyone's been telling him.
Situation with their son,
they've been raising so much money off of his name.
You know what I'm saying?
And they knew that if he took a plea deal,
like,
they could no longer continue to raise money off of his name.
We don't
I don't
know
think his family gives a shit about it
because we weren't in that courtroom. So
if anyone around him cared about him, they would have convinced him to take a plea deal and not be facing 99 years in prison.
They just
he could have taken like a 10-year plea deal. It was probably on offer.
That they missed,
10 to 15.
They bring it back up because, like I said, it's a crazy situation.
Good behavior.
You know,
now he's facing
either
up
way
to
it goes.
99
There's no
years.
win in this.
For sure. And now with this case finally over, I feel like it's kind of been this dark cloud hanging over Collin County, McKinney, Frisco. You know, do you think that this will be a trial that maybe will always have a mark on this area?
I don't think it's a trial.
Do I need a haircut?
There's been cases
way
before this that were kind of went the same way. I think until the process change of, you know, how they, you know, pick jurors and just how the judicial system is.
Our dryer lip beard is crazy
change.
work.
But, you know, like I said, these situations are very hard. They could go either way. You know, like I said,
they
shout out
can't go
to both
either way.
families. You know, we all pray for both
Don't
families because
stab
this is a
people
no-win situation.
for next to no reason.
It's just hard for everybody.
And you
Absolutely.
won't go
Have
to
you
prison
followed
for
along
murder.
the case since it happened? I mean, do you have any connection to, you know, Karmelo Anthony or,
That's true, Chief.
the track meet? I mean, do you have any connection to this case other than you live here and you heard about it?
I don't have any connection to anybody.
Henry, they don't have any of that money left. They're going to start raising more money for the appeal.
You know, I just know
because this was unfair. This
and
trial
this
was
Collin
unfair.
County, and I know how a lot of things go here in Collin County. You know, having gone through the judicial system myself, I know how it is out here. So, you know, like I said, unless you've been on the inside and seen it from the outside, a lot of people can just talk and speculate. But until they've gone through this, until you sat there with an attorney and your thought process and what they're thinking and what they're going through, nobody can actually really tell you what's going on.
So is that why you're here? Because you know firsthand the experience of what, you know, Anthony might be experiencing in the courtroom with his family there, his defense attorney there. Is that why you're here? Because, you know, you have some experience with this and you wanted to show your support, or are you here for another reason?
No, I was here just because I wanted to see justice. I mean, I want to see, you know, fairness. You know.
Okay, so apparently the only person to take the stand in the punishment phase was Karmelo Anthony's mother. She begged for mercy. Please have mercy on my son. She sobbed as she looked at the jury. Both sides have now closed out their cases. The court is now working on a charging document and now return. So that was it for the people on the stand for sentencing. Normally they get a bunch of people coming in, the family, of both the murdered and murderer, But I guess they felt like they didn't need to do that. He was found guilty quickly. This jury doesn't need to hear statements from Austin Metcalf's family. They know. 99 years.
So we never know how this gonna be.
What is your first and last name?
All right, so if you're just joining us here
Susie,
live now from
they're
Fox,
doing
that was
sentencing
some
now.
reaction
That's
moments
what's
after
happening
we
now.
learned the guilty verdict that was found for Karmelo Anthony in the Austin Metcalf murder trial. This post coming from Fox News, breaking: a jury has found Karmelo Anthony guilty in the murder of 17-year-old Austin Metcalf. Anthony admitted to stabbing Metcalf, but claimed that he acted in self-defense. Witnesses testified that Metcalf and other student athletes repeatedly asked Anthony to leave a Memorial High School team tent during a rain delay at the track meet. Students said Anthony responded with threats and became increasingly confrontational before a brief physical altercation ended when Metcalf was stabbed in the chest. So joining us right now to break down all of these developments that we've learned today is former federal prosecutor and legal analyst Nima Rahmani. Thanks so much for joining us here on Live Now from Fox.
Thanks for having me, Anna. Great to be here.
Of course. So just as this verdict comes out, what was your immediate reaction? How did the jury
98
ultimately
and a
come to
half
this
years.
conclusion?
Admin, over under 40
this was
years.
a very quick deliberation, 3 hours. And
I'd say
think
over
it's
40.
a testament to the strength of the prosecution's
I
case.
wouldn't be shocked
but
if they come
frankly,
back with
the
50
fact
years or
that
something, though.
much of the evidence wasn't in dispute here. I mean, really, there was a question of was Karmelo Anthony shoved with one arm or two? What was the weight difference between him and Austin Metcalf? Was it 50 pounds or 100 pounds? Did they have a right to be in the tent? Was it normal to go into a rival team's tent? But really, it's a question of, was his use of force reasonable and proportionate? Because it has to be objectively reasonable. And this applies in every state, not just the state of Texas. You can't bring a proverbial knife to a fist fight. And this wasn't even punching. This was pushing and shoving. And I maintained the whole time that this was an unnecessary escalation under the circumstances. Stabbing someone in the chest just because you've been shoved is not self-defense under the law, because it's not objectively reasonable. You shouldn't have a knife at a track event. I know the defense was arguing that it was a tool and not a weapon, but I don't think that really resonated with the jurors. And of course, the fact that they were sequestered means that they wanted to wrap this up as quickly as possible
Guns
and
are
get
just
home.
tools.
So
Sure.
big win for the prosecution. I think the only chance that the defense had in this case would be if Karmelo Anthony testified. And if he testified that he believed that he was at imminent risk of death or serious bodily injury, if he was able to convince the jurors that he was genuine in his fear, even though it was unreasonable under Texas state law, that would have reduced murder to manslaughter. And that sentence would have been 2 to 20 years. But when Karmelo Anthony did not take the stand, the jurors were left with really an all or nothing proposition. Was this reasonable? Was it not? And when it was not reasonable, there was only one
0%
reasonable
side
verdict,
myself.
and that's guilty of first degree murder.
And do you think keeping Karmelo Anthony out of the witness box was the right call in this situation?
Paco,
I
anything
do
is a
not,
weapon
and I
if
know
you're
he
angry
would
enough.
have been
True.
subject to a grueling cross-examination, and I understand why the defense did what they did. Some of his statements did come out during the prosecution's case that, he told Metcalf not to touch him, that he was acting in self-defense. But the conventional wisdom in these cases is, if you're going to present a self-defense argument or defense, you have to take the stand. You have to explain to the
that's
jurors
true.
and look them in the eye why you believe
Rittenhouse took
that
the
you would
stand.
be
Why didn't
killed,
Karmelo
or
take the
why you
stand,
believe
huh?
that you would suffer serious bodily injury. I don't think there's any reasonable world where Karmelo Anthony thought that he was going to suffer serious bodily injury. There was a lot of other kids there. There were coaches. I know maybe he thought he was going to be jumped. He was surrounded by Metcalf and his twin brother, but nothing had reached the point where he was going to be severely
I could see that, Bill
physically
Barr.
assaulted.
I could see that
It was just a
happening.
push. the response was disproportionate. You don't stab someone in the chest simply because you're pushed. And I think the result would have been the same regardless of the race of the defendant and the victim. Obviously, a lot of people have talked about this all-white jury, and I'm not naive.
An all-white jury.
You know, the racial
here we go.
Overtones in this case, I mean, can't be ignored. You have Black Panthers, you have Proud Boys outside that courthouse.
The other side is
if you're
not
just looking
hearing
at
what
this and
actually
you're
happened
colorblind,
here.
I do think this was the
Therein
just
lies
result,
the
and the
problem.
result would have been the same regardless of the race of the victim and the defendant, or at least it should have been.
You know, we've been talking about how quickly things moved in reaching this verdict. Do you think the jury kind of was leaning one way all along, or was there maybe a turning point that caused them to ultimately decide that he's guilty?
He was guilty as fuck from
I think
the
this
beginning.
outcome was inevitable, regardless of who the jurors were. You know, the conventional wisdom, again, is that not only does the defendant have to take the stand, but in most cases, jurors tend to deliberate. This is a rule of thumb. Approximately 1 hour for each day of witness testimony. This was obviously much shorter than that. And it just goes to show how strong the prosecution's case was. Maybe there were 1 or 2 holdout jurors in the beginning, but the fact that you got to first degree murder, not a compromise verdict here, not a mixed verdict on manslaughter, and you got there so quickly, leads me to believe that the vast majority of the jurors were decided, you know, even before closing arguments when they went into that jury deliberation room, because the deliberation was so short. Short verdict tends to either be a very strong prosecution case or a very strong defense case. And in this case, there was no doubt that this was a very strong and compelling prosecution case. And I know the defense will take his chance on appeal, and you know, the defense has also chosen to have the jury decide the sentence. Now, this is one thing that's unique about Texas. Defendants can choose to have a judge sentence them or a jury. This is not the case in most states. So right now, Karmelo Anthony's mom is, I believe, she's on the witness stand. She's testifying or about her son trying to really get a reduced sentence, because the range is very broad here. We're talking about anywhere from 5 years to 99 years. And it's very easy to say someone's guilty, but it's also very different to look them in the eye and look their family in the eye and sentence them to max them out. So it's going to be interesting to see what the jurors do. I do think he's probably going to get, you know, decades in state prison, but I don't think he's going to get anywhere near the max. And for everyone that's talking about the death penalty, I just want folks to know the death penalty is not an option in this case. The prosecution didn't seek it. And generally, the Supreme Court has said that the death penalty is inappropriate for minors. And of course, Karmelo Anthony was, I believe, a minor at the time, even though he can be prosecuted as an adult under Texas state law.
And you talked about Karmelo Anthony's mother being on the witness stand. One thing that kind of stood out to me today was that the attorneys waived those opening statements in the punishment phase, and they went straight to that witness testimony. What does that tell you about the strategy of both sides? And is that an unusual thing in a case like this?
Well, I think the lawyers want to be respectful of the jurors. Sometimes the jurors don't necessarily know that there's going to be a second phase of the case, because obviously, if he were found to be not guilty, the jurors would not deliberate on punishment. So whether it's punishment or whether it is punitive damages, sometimes jurors don't necessarily know that there's going to be a second phase to the case. Sometimes the judge does tell them. But the reality here is, it is a serious imposition on an individual's time to be seated as a juror, especially in a very serious case like this. There's people on all sides, on social media, traditional media. We've been covering it now for weeks, right? That have very strong views about this case. They're not deaf. They understand that there's people outside protesting. They've had their phones taken away from them. They can only communicate with family members in case it's an emergency. They're supposed to have no contact with the outside world.
In London
so now you're asking them to sit in judgment for additional days, potentially, to decide the punishment of this young man. And obviously, that is a very important role that they play in our criminal justice system. But if you're the lawyers here, you really want to be sensitive to their time. What is going to be said in opening statement during the second phase of the case that they haven't already heard? You really want to start talking about those mitigating factors. You want to hear about Karmelo Anthony's upbringing, whether he was a good student, whether he lacked criminal history, whether he hasn't gotten in this trouble. So there's a lot of evidence that's going to come in that's relevant to sentencing that isn't necessarily relevant to guilt or innocence. So it does make sense to move forward. Let's hear from those sentencing witnesses, the family members of Anthony,
Maybe
obviously
you're going
the
back through
victim's
your
family.
notes. You're looking at what types of things matter to them. You're thinking of which jurors have kids that are teenagers themselves. And so you're trying to find not a law thing that you can connect with them on, but a commonality
I saw some
ground.
clips going around on X.
And so mom obviously does that.
In
Many
Belfast,
moms
but I don't think that's
worry
currently
about their
happening,
children
right? As
every
far as I
day when
know.
they go out the door. You worry about them when you're teaching them to drive. You worry about them when you send them off to college. And so, that's the identification,
As far as I can tell, it's
the
just a lot of
commonality.
standing around
Where in the same,
in the UK.
Many parents' biggest fear is to have the death of their child before their own death. And so, when I say there's a collision. It's these concepts coexist in this. This huge range of punishment from 5 to 99 years.
It's his long lost son or cousin or something.
And so the jurors are trying to balance and circle all of that together in a way that reaches what we will consider, as a fair result. And that's, I think, a tough thing to do.
And gut-wrenching for jurors.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. There's not going to be a law and a boxes that you check, and it really comes down to your own conscience on a given day, and
this is from earlier after the decision was read. Scenes from outside the courthouse.
When a man walked up, what did you do? You crossed your arms. You aren't going to approach a woman like that. You're not going to approach a woman like that. Hold up! Hold up! You only got in a woman thing, but when a man walked up, what did you do?
Karmelo's important. That's the crazy part.
What up, LA2Mex over on Twitch? Uh-oh, they jumping. Yeah, Max, World Cup on Thursday, huh? We could have a fun little summer.
A case, a trial that will be remembered here in Texas, one that we will probably refer to for years to come, even considering that it got national attention. As we dissect and kind of look back on this trial, was there anything in particular that stood out to you in terms of how prosecutors handled it, in terms of how the defense went about it? Did anything catch your attention?
Not necessarily, and I don't say that, I guess, maybe in a bad way, but I think this case in particular received lots of attention, but a lot of the methodology that was actually employed to try the case was common to cases that just did not receive this much attention, and so it wasn't necessarily anything that was particularly surprising. A lot of the measures that were put in place to try to protect, if you will, the trial, I think were, those were the things that were unique about it. But unfortunately, there's, lots of homicides across the state, and there's murder trials almost every week. And so, there wasn't something that just stood out, like that. Maybe the court on Saturday, which is rare.
Well, we've had court on Saturday, even here in Dallas County. It's been infrequent. And Russell, we are joined now by Clarice Tinsley. Good to see you, Clarice.
You as well, Sean.
It's been infrequent that we've had Saturday court. Maybe the Amber Geiger trial, we had Saturday court. I covered that. You are right. There are no facts, there were no circumstances here that are different from many of the murder trials that take place every day across Dallas County, Harris County, Travis County, Bexar County, Collin County. This was unique in not only what happened, where it happened, when it happened, and in the moments immediately after. Within an hour or 2 hours after it happened, the father of Austin Metcalf is on TV. Within an hour after that, the mother was on. They're sharing their pain. It's raw. The family's there. They're on national news the same night. That usually doesn't happen with the homicide
Flat, they
victim
had court
so
on
quickly.
Saturday.
We get to the families.
This
but not
judge
just within
wanted this
hours
over
after.
quick.
Right. The social media current was powerful. And I mean, that's what we're still witnessing today.
And it was probably smart.
The racial undertones that came out as well.
Pretty sure he knew it was an
so
open
when I'm
and shut
saying
case.
not unique, I think just in the core facts, but the amount of division, the amount of views, the conversations it sparked, those are the things that are going to continue to make it a national discussion, and that's
less
why
than
it
a
will be
50%
remembered.
chance of riots over this.
Is for what it caused in that regard. Yes, ma'am.
And Russell, the fact that the last three members of the jury pool, the three women who were black who were teachers, no black juror, no African American juror on the panel, and the fact that those three women were removed or disqualified. What is your reaction to that? And is that something do you think might be used on appeal?
It's most certainly is going to go up on appeal. It continues to be a disputed issue. Without having heard the entirety of the voir dire, I think if the state's proffer reason, they say, "Hey, we're striking them because they're teachers." I think many people will disbelieve that, and so I don't know. Whether or not that'll ever be, accurately answered. People are going to always have their opinion on it. As far as the law, I think the law does allow striking for race-neutral reasons. So that issue, there's actually a case recently at the Supreme Court that was reversed on racial discrimination in jury selection. So that's going to be an issue that goes up through the courts, and I can't say for sure how that will turn out. I don't know, but I think
Which is
if
why,
you were
though,
appealing the case,
there will
as
be
one
some
that you-
people behind this case who argues justice is not blind for that very reason.
And yes, there will be. And it's understandable that there will be. There's certainly, studies regarding disparities between black and white defendants and black and white jurors, things along those lines. And so those arguments will be made, and that's, kind of one of the ongoing discussions in our country. Or certainly in our city and county is, when race matters and when it doesn't. So the flip side, they will say, that any person, regardless of their color, in these circumstances, if you were to say both people were the same color or a different color, the law would say, can you defend yourself in this manner or not? And so there's that issue to try to balance with.
Is not public. But again, there are certainly some factors in mitigation in this case. I don't think it is a death penalty type case. I know people are going to disagree with me. I do think it's a first-degree murder case. In most states, that would result in a sentence of 25 to life. Maybe he won't get that sentence necessarily because of the wide range under Texas state law. So I think the big thing to look out for is, where do those jurors land? Do they give Karmelo Anthony the opportunity at some point in his life to have the opportunity for parole or to be a free man, or do they put him away for life, which case would really, we've lost 2 lives unnecessarily in this tragedy.
All right, Nima, thank you so much for your time and your expertise here on Live Now from Fox. We always appreciate it.
One of them was a bigger
Thank you for
loss
having
than
me,
the
as
other.
always.
All right, it is time for us here on Live Now from Fox to slide away for a quick 2-minute commercial break. I'm your host, Anna Marsix.
Different sides of an issue, someone who would be neutral and look at the information. I mean, really look at the evidence that would be provided and deal with it on a intellectual or a non-emotional way. And I guess I just was surprised that the teachers, that would have been a profession that they would not have wanted to be on the panel.
Perhaps there's, and Russell can speak to this better than me, but perhaps there's the idea that they might be overly sympathetic to a young person, race notwithstanding.
Why would they be? After they
And I think
no time at all. They could have found him guilty on the manslaughter
I
charge,
currently know
which has a lower sentence, but they went with
occupations of
murder.
the other jurors. But if your
Why would they
stripes
give him
are
a
among
low sentence?
A conservative rancher who's let's say he has some cattle in North Collin County, and I have a teacher, I may choose to strike the teacher in
That's
favor
true,
of the
Jason.
rancher because I feel like the rancher may be less compassionate than the teacher. And so it's also a little bit of a relativity type thing. Or if I have a person who does what we call hard sciences, engineers, well, they may be less compassionate
Engineers.
in their
Engineers
analytics. And so,
What about
I
astronauts
think
and
that
doctors?
would come into play as well.
Everything Karmelo was
and
about
so
to be.
that's going to be discussed. And certainly the attorneys for the state had to know that would be discussed. And there'll be people that will always view that, they'll say, hey, yeah, no, they struck them because of their race. And, that we'll never know what the answers, will be on those questions. We'll know what the answers we got in court, what the ruling was. But certainly, we also know what the evidence was in the
Engineer,
case.
astronaut, doctor.
In case you are just now joining us on our digital platforms, Karmelo Anthony found guilty of murder in the trial for the murder of young Mr. Metcalf, Austin Metcalf, and the jury now deliberating punishment. They will decide the punishment.
Be clear,
They still might
this is-
do recess.
this is
I think we're
old
still
footage.
waiting for them to do
He is in
closing
custody
arguments.
right now.
They're
So
still in
they're-
recess. I guess they haven't gotten the charge yet
Right,
and closing arguments.
Yeah, I think we're going to hear, or we won't be able to actually hear it, but yeah, I think we'll get closing arguments and then the deliberation.
Yes.
Given the way that this is rolling, I'm assuming he's not going to give much time for closing arguments.
I would guess not. Maybe a half hour or less, you think?
I was thinking 15 minutes aside, but maybe. I mean, if there's an intention to give an opportunity to be done today,
Okay.
And today ends at 6, then I think, and you assume at least an hour or more of deliberation. But if not, I mean, the other thing is the jury could also ask not to be sequestered, but just extend their deliberations into the evening. So,
The case,
I
Russell
think-
Wilson,
yeah.
have you had a case where the punishment phase deliberation was longer than the guilt or innocent phase?
Yes.
That won't
Yes,
be the
yes,
case
we
here.
have. We've had, yes, I can recall some cases, literally, the jurors were out.
Jury might want
Yeah,
some free dinner.
for
That's
days
true.
on
As
punishment.
long as we're here,
Again,
couple
that
more hours.
wide range, and a relatively youthful person who's convicted. Most people that make it on to the jury don't necessarily show up wanting to give a person a harsh sentence. If you wake up on a given day, do you wake up wishing bad for somebody? And so that that isn't necessarily easily achieved. Again, if we know more about the jurors here, we could, we might be able to read something from the speed with which they reached the murder guilty verdict. And again, some of their backgrounds. I think some of them, from the descriptions I've understood, tend to be from more conservative professional sectors, which may suggest that they would tend to sentence higher on a punishment case.
All right, we're gonna let Google
Russell and
generate the
Sean,
sentence.
we're getting
Random
some
number
reporting
between
from
5
Lori
and
Brown,
99.
who's been covering this trial. She says that Judge Roach is
55
back,
years, you heard
but
it
family
here.
is not in the courtroom.
Carmelo Anthony
The
is
judge,
getting
she said, just came and shook
55
all the
years in
reporters'
prison.
hands and thanked us for following the rules. Attorneys and the judge are working on the jury
Actually, that could
charge
be-
for the
that- I
punishment
wouldn't be
phase
shocked
in
if
light
that's
of the
the actual
verdict.
number.
She says, this is my take on the key moments from closing statements. Prosecution gave 4 reasons self-defense does not apply. 1, provoke. Anthony provoked the encounter. 2, force disparity. You can't meet a shove with a stab. You can meet a shove with a shove or deadly force with deadly force. Number 3, reasonable belief from Worski. A reasonable person would not have plunged a knife into
Why? You
Austin
don't think he'll
Metcalf.
live past 21?
Number 4, immediately necessary. Deadly force must be immediately necessary. Worski argued there was not immediate necessity to plunge a knife into an unarmed man. In addition, in Texas, a person who does not need to intend to kill someone for it to still be murder. If someone intended to cause serious bodily injury, that is murder according to jury instructions.
Yeah, no, I would tend to agree with those.
So, as you prepare your closing statements now before this jury, let's first talk about the defense. He's guilty, okay, of murder.
Mm-hmm.
What do you say now in this moment? There's really no need to talk about.
I think you, depending on what your demeanor was, Norm Vordaer, I mean, I think you thank them for their time and their service, and you get right down to your issue. And I was saying, I don't know that you need.
Yeah, Jay said it's been left. It's being left up to the jury to decide.
To give the mitigation
reasonable
case
amount of years to
for
give him.
for Carmelo Anthony, nor do I think you necessarily need 30 minutes.
The fact that they didn't go for
punishment case
manslaughter
for
tells
Austin
me
Metcalf.
that they are thinking more than 20 years is
You should be about getting
what they
to
want on
it.
the table.
It's later.
The
in
manslaughter
day.
charge had a maximum
There's a certain
of 20
amount
years.
of juror
They decided
fatigue.
to go for murder charge,
I don't know if you
which has a maximum of 99
if you've been in
years.
courtrooms during the morning time. There's
There's a lot of room between that, but
more energy.
More than
just
20
as
for sure.
As the day goes on.
Yes.
As you get up to witness 20. And so you want to be able to keep attention, and you don't do that by having something that, in my view, is long-winded. But you've got to be, precise here. And so, and you've got things that you want to cover. Given the limited number of witnesses, there's not going to be
69 years is on the
necessarily
table.
new punishment stuff.
Right.
And so, again, I think it's hard to, you're really just rehashing from the existing evidence, mitigating things, with age, youth, and lack of criminal history being the main ones. And for the prosecution, they're going to be age, youth, and, a future of promise.
Let me bring something up that's way outside of the courtroom right now, Russell Wilson. Earlier, I mentioned that State Rep Jared Patterson, and Jeff Leach had put out these statements on social media. Now, Abraham George, the chairman of the state Republican Party, is doing the same thing. I've never, in my many years, seen elected officials weigh in a local murder trial.
You haven't?
These political voices
You've never seen
sending
that?
these kinds of messages. I don't know if that's more divisive to the entire community, or what? Do you have any thoughts on that? It may not be something you want to talk about, but.
No, I think, I mean, the reality, I think, it's fair to say our today's politics are more divisive than they were, let's say, 10 or 15 years ago. And there's a lot of things that have changed. There's social media.
Okay.
But one of the things that politicians certainly are aware of is that they're judged oftentimes perhaps on one or two acts, very few acts. And it could be what you did or said after the Austin Metcalf verdict or the position certainly could impact it. So it changes trajectories, if you will. And I don't know that I think it's a good or bad thing. I think societal involvement in our criminal justice system is good. But, you know, I don't know, for example, when politicians come out and
Julio Rosas from Mostly Peaceful Media has riot risk at guarded. General risk, but relatively low. I kind of agree with that. Heightened tensions possible. Monitor local news.
as there's at least an impression that their constituents, you know, if I'm in your district and I'm voting for you and you didn't say anything on this or that, then maybe I have, you know, I believe the ones that you have mentioned are more conservative. It seems like those are Republican and
right, Lunchbox. That's what I was thinking. Yeah, Obama wasn't divisive, not one bit.
They might feel like they would have lost their support by not saying something, and so it's easy to put together a message, put it out on Twitter or TikTok, or issue a statement, and so that's what I think we're gonna. I think we'll see that going forward.
Paco, felons
Everything
can't
should
vote.
not be colored with politics.
Oh.
In California,
So
they
the
can.
jury got the
As long as they have a
case,
gym
started
membership.
deliberating today at 10:52. They came back with a verdict a little bit after 1:30. It is now 3:42. And do you still see that all of this will end today, that it will wrap up today?
Yes, I guess. If you let me, once we know what time they start reading the charge and how much time he gives for closing arguments, but more likely than not, again, you know, the jurors have some idea in their mind, and when they go into deliberations, there's going to be a debate regarding the number. And
I see some
somebody
smoke
may say,
on a
well, I could
Belfast
never agree to
stream.
that. You know, so I do think it may go relatively
Nothing
quickly.
too crazy, though.
In order for it not to do that, somebody has to feel very strongly about a particular position that they will not change no matter what. And I don't know, as I understand this group of jurors, and again, taken from that initial verdict, that type of division would be among this group of 12 citizens. So those are the things that are
Paco,
indicating
so the
to
actual
me
sentencing
that
could literally
this
be
could
any
still
minute
be
now.
quick.
The
That
judge,
doesn't necessarily mean that there's not
the
some
court
weight
is working on the
assigned
charging document,
to the
which
things
the
we
judge
talked
will
about that
read
are
to the
plus
jury,
and minus.
and then
It's just that
I think they'll
number may
deliberate what they
be
think the
assigned,
sentence should
considered.
be.
You
and
could tell
once they're
somebody,
done,
hey, if it's a
they present that to the
17-year-old
judge
kid,
who
and I think
announces it.
20 years is good.
Now, I think
Somebody else
court
would say no. 40
could
is
possibly
fine
be
with
in
me.
session for another 2
Do
hours. So
those
if they
people
get that
then
done
say,
in the
well,
next
let's
2
meet in
hours
the middle
today,
at
we'll know today.
X, Y, Z 30.
Suppose it's possible
It certainly
that
could happen.
we get it tomorrow morning, right?
Because remember, they
it's
don't
gonna
have a true basis. There's no guide rail to tell you why 28 is better than 32, or you don't have a way to distinguish the differences in the numbers, and you certainly don't have a way to tell somebody that their number is wrong, at least, you know, And you may have some people that go in and say, no, I don't care, a life for a life. I want to see him get a life sentence.
Let's get more with Amanda Ferguson, a journalist based in Belfast. And Amanda, a statement has just been released from the Justice Minister. Just tell us what it says.
Yes, that's right. Naomi Long of the Alliance Party is Northern Ireland's Justice Minister. She referenced in her statement the fact that she spoke earlier with the First Minister and the Deputy First Minister and the PSNI Chief Constable appealing for calm. She said that there had been a weaponising had taken place, that there was no place for mass thugs to take to the streets and intimidate and disrupt and cause wanton damage. And she said it's simply disingenuous to claim that this is being carried out for the good of Northern Ireland. And again, she appealed, for communities not to allow themselves to be used and abused by people with malign intent. And I think that is perhaps referencing a little bit about the online world, nationally and internationally. Sort of far-right actors trying to weaponise this particular incident because of the people at the centre of it.
Yeah, Amanda, you've
Bronco
been out and
Buster,
about
hong hong.
speaking to
You're about 20 minutes from the action in
What have they been
Texas.
telling you?
They're absolutely horrified by
You
what's
should be
happening.
okay.
Most people don't support this kind of activity. The police statement that's been issued in the last hour is still referring to it as sporadic disorder. We know that a number of vehicles have been set on fire, the bins have been set on fire, but there isn't widespread disorder in the normal sense of rioting at this point. But you can hear sirens going off all over the city. It was very clear to me being out and about earlier that workplaces were letting people go home early, that businesses were shutting up shop, and most people are just horrified at what is unfolding in our city.
Yeah, and one of the things that the police continues to reiterate, and the authorities, is telling these demonstrators not to take matters into their own hands. That they are, they've detained the man, they've now charged him. That they are controlling the situation, and that people don't need to, take this matter into their own hands.
Get a little dumpster fire going?
Yeah, we know that a 30-year-old's due to appear in court tomorrow, charged with attempted murder and with threats to kill and so on. But what we're actually seeing on the streets is a number of things. There were people who took place in peaceful protest earlier in the evening around the political issues and issues around immigration that they feel they wanted to raise. But that's very different from the people who are being overtly racist, who are making people in fear for their safety, if they don't happen to be white people. We're seeing a lot of clips that are floating around online, all of those different advertised protests, like that really is a fishing sort of expedition, thinking, AI-generated images, we'll have protests in 100 different locations, and it's really just sort of shaking it down to see what actually happens. So what has happened is that there's been peaceful protests from some people. That now appears to be the peaceful proceedings over for the evening. And then what we're seeing is sort of burning barricades, burning buses, burning vehicles that are taking place. But police, in the last hour, their statement still did mention it as sporadic pockets of disorder. And essentially the police are asking anyone with influence, and that can be a wide range of actors in Northern Ireland, to desist from this sort of activity. But you also can't discount the fact that because we're into the summer months, because rioting and this sort of violent activity tends to happen maybe annually and usually in the summer months, that there is a recreational element to this. But some of the horrific sort of racist, abusive, misogynistic material that's floating around online and also in the clips that are being circulated, it's just horrific to most people's ears. And what we're seeing isn't representative of the majority of people of Belfast or the majority of the people of Northern Ireland or further afield. It's the same that whenever there's rioting that takes place in Dublin or in London or in Cardiff or somewhere in Scotland, that people are horrified by that. But I just think because of Northern Ireland's history and the legacy of all of the sort of conflict years that we've had.
Just off of experience, but you rarely have jurors that look forward to sequestration.
Right.
That's true.
So I think if we start by 4, particularly if we're just doing closing arguments, if there's 15 minutes aside, you'll probably see the prosecution will pass again, or be an argument about who goes first and who goes last. But if the state goes last, they'll let
What
the
up,
defense
Nick
go,
Naylor?
and then
I aged 10 years, huh?
We're
getting old, man.
They'll have sufficient time to have those discussions. And particularly, they don't have much. They don't have really much new evidence, right? It certainly wouldn't have been a surprise that his mom would say,
Rebel Yankee?
save my son's life.
So shadow banned.
And so that'll be, probably another discussion as well.
Yes.
Well, Russell, it's 10 minutes to 4. We're going to take a brief break, and we're going to continue our coverage right after this.
These are coming up to the time of the year when they tend to have serious disorder and protests like this, with barricades, with burning barricades, so that the officers, the public order trained officers, are very experienced. They're very well used to these sort of tactics where the vehicles then split and almost go in convoy and take the same route through the barricades or the burning barricades, as you can see on the screen now. So it's a normal police tactic, sadly, for them in Northern Ireland, to then reconvene and reform at the top of the street, but to drive through the barriers, past the burning, the fire that's set alight in the roadway, and get to the other end of the street.
And Graham, we saw a bus that was set alight earlier. We can see some vehicles now that are on fire. And we know bins were set on fire earlier as well. And of course, there were peaceful protests earlier in the day, and it just seems to have escalated. And there are concerns that this could further escalate through the night.
I think that's always been the concern. You saw, it would seem more people out in the streets earlier on, but peaceful protests, people walking around the streets, not the disorder and the vehicles that are being set on fire, or the number of vehicles set on fire that we're now seeing. It does seem to be escalating, as you heard from your correspondents. You can feel the tension when you're on the streets. When you're actually there, you can feel tension start to rise. That seems to be the case now. That will be the concern for the police. I think one of the images on the screen, one of the live images, shows a property now on fire as well. So that will be the concern for the police, the public order commanders, to actually get resources into those areas and start dealing with these incidents of serious disorder that's taking place. But it looks like at least one property on fire there on the image on the left.
Yeah, Graham, part of the issue here is that it's happening in different pockets of Belfast. It's not just contained to the city centre. And I was speaking to Dan, our correspondent, who was in the city centre earlier where the bus was set on fire. And he sort of said that it had almost de-escalated there. But then Connor was saying where he was, it felt incredibly tense, as though things were ramping up where he was.
I think that was always a concern, that there was, as I said, there was like the peaceful protest we saw earlier with a majority of people protesting peacefully, but there was always the possibility and the concern that maybe the younger element would use this. As a previous guest has said, this happens seasonally and regularly, annually in Belfast around this time of year. It becomes, and again they use the term, almost like a recreational event for some people. That was always a concern after last night's awful attack in the city. That this would be used by people as part of an event they do regularly anyway, to go out, set things on fire and escalate serious disorder. And sadly, as was almost predicted and feared, this is now what's happening.
Graham, thanks so much for that update. Let's bring in Amanda Ferguson, journalist based in Belfast, who is still with us. And Amanda, we're just looking at those earlier images of the police driving through the barricades. And of course, there's many images of cars set on fire, bus set on fire earlier. Our commentator just now, Graham, was just saying that we can also see the images of a property that's set on fire as well.
Yes, that's right. Obviously, a metal barrier is no competition.
The verdict today. Both families, according to Lori Brown, are now in the courtroom, ready to start the next phase, the punishment phase.
Right, and the charge to the jury is what's being prepared now. We will have closing statements from both sides. And one of the things that could come out now even is the idea of sudden passion, meaning this was not some premeditated planned thing. This was in the moment. It was in the heat of the moment action. Again, hoping to mitigate to some degree in the minds of the jurors as they decide how long Karmelo Anthony must serve time as justice for the murder of Austin Metcalf.
And we've seen Judge Roach want to keep the progress moving, to keep this going, holding court on Saturday, which is very rare, and also telling the jury to bring clothes, to come to be prepared, to possibly be sequestered tonight. However, Russell Wilson was telling us he thinks that with the way things may continue, this could end this evening in terms of what the punishment will be.
Yes, we're going to know, hopefully, fairly soon. We're going to know they are back on the record in the courtroom. Both sides have done their close. The jury's being brought in, so they're done with the charge now.
Oh, wow.
I'm guessing? Oh, that's coming for the jurors?
Hang on, back in court after a break.
They're
Lawyers
presenting the charge, okay.
So it won't.
Yeah, back in court after a break. Lawyers and judge have been working on the charging document. The jury in the Karmelo Anthony trial will be using to determine a sentence. Okay. So they'll probably be reading the charge soon.
Even larger law enforcement, no charge comments going back and forth between both sides, but nothing violent. And there you can see people expressing their opinions, their reactions, and this is the way it should be.
So again, Karmelo Anthony is guilty of murder, and his defense team obviously hoping for something less. That did not happen. And we're going to continue, Clarice, covering the rest of the events of this day with this trial and beyond this day, because, again, it's going to be one of those cases that works its way into law school. You watch.
Absolutely, and we're seeing it unfold right before our very eyes. We want to thank you for joining us, and we're going to have live coverage on Fox 4. Stay with us.
Okay. No bite sentencing will probably be tomorrow. I don't know. I think there's a chance we get it today. I think there's a chance. We've pretty much lost all of our feeds here, though. Thanks for this feed. Oops. There we go.
Okay. And do I stay put? Or do you want me to just reference them?
Yeah, just reference them on Zoom too.
Okay. And step out of the way, or I stay put?
Stay put.
Perfect. Because I'm all on camera for what I believe, and it's not an overly long. It's just a live VO.
Yeah.
Go ahead and dial up my.
Okay. According to a reporter in the courtroom 1 minute ago, Karmelo had been out of the courtroom and returned a few minutes ago. When he sat down at the defense table, he was shaking in his chair. He was trembling so bad, a woman who was part of his defense team and was sitting behind him put her hands on his shoulders to calm him down.
Go look out here, world. I'm not.
Judge Judy now? What is going on? Fox definitely having some issues here. Okay. We got some footage out of Belfast again. No sound. Fires in different parts of Belfast. These are being called far-right protests and riots because of the Belfast knife attack. Oh, Joe Discount, my bad. In Ireland, they call it foyer. Yes, Trumpers, Corbusier.
Very soon begin deliberating and deciding the punishment for Karmelo Anthony. Listen, the charge says you have found the defendant guilty. It is now your duty to assess punishment. The issue of sudden passion has been raised. Sudden passion suggests this was not premeditated, this was not planned, that Karmelo Anthony didn't go to that track meet planning to exact violence and take someone's life. It was in the heat of the moment. And so because that has been raised, here's part of the charge to the jurors about sudden passion. If you determine sudden passion, you may not sentence him for more than 20 years. If not sudden passion, you can sentence him to life. Sudden passion caused by provocation by the person killed. So that's where the jury are. They're getting the charge, then they will return to that jury room and they will decide how long Karmelo Anthony will serve time in the Texas Department of Corrections for the murder of Austin Metcalf. That could happen between now and 6 o'clock. They could return with that decision before the day has ended.
And considering how quickly things have moved in this trial, we might as well, find out what they decide very soon, surely by the end of the day today. Thank you so much, Sean. Let's now head over to Fox 4's Alex Boyer, who has been live outside of the courthouse in McKinney all day. Alex, what can you tell us about the reaction out there and just how people are feeling at the moment? When we spoke to you about 2 hours ago, it looked like tensions were rising. Have things calmed down?
They have, for the moment, Eden, as you mentioned, of course, like emotions, the day has ebbed and flowed with the way folks have been reacting to what they have been hearing. We've had a few people come up to us within the last hour and just kind of venting at us over what the verdict has been. But all in all, folks here have remained quite calm and peaceful. I can tell you that the crowd began to build first thing this morning outside the Collin County Courthouse as attorneys for both sides were presenting closing arguments. Then the jury got the case just before 11 a.m. Excuse me. During jury deliberations, many folks were out here live streaming on social media. Others were simply sitting under trees and talking to one another, and others were chanting and praying. When word got out that there was a verdict, the crowd all but began to gather near excuse me, the steps of the courthouse. Over a dozen law enforcement officers came out and formed a line separating the crowd from the steps of the courthouse. And from my vantage point, most people seemed to abide by the officers' orders. When the crowd learned that Karmelo Anthony had been found guilty of murder, I heard some audible gasps and moans, but many people stayed quiet. I think that they were really digesting what they learned. Then I heard a woman yell, "Let's stay together," and another woman got on a loudspeaker and started preaching. Some people have left over the past hour, but many are staying to see if the jury who convicted him will also reach a sentencing agreement today. Now, if we can come back out here live to my ground shot here, you may be able to see the law enforcement presence that you were just seeing from Sky 4 on the ground. You can see at the moment kind of a casual stance that they were all certainly lined up and a lot more active when that sentencing, or I should say verdict, first came down.
Yeah, this sudden
now as
passion
we
thing
await
is bullshit.
what the sentencing will be for Karmelo Anthony, the fate, they are kind of more at ease, but keeping an eye on the crowd here, which again has remained relatively peaceful throughout the entire time that I have been here. Back to you.
It's good to know that things have been peaceful. We've really seen people on both sides, those who feel that, who agree with this sentencing or with this verdict, who are on Austin Metcalf's side and feel that justice was served, and those who are on Karmelo Anthony's side and feel as though that this was too harsh. Our Amelia Jones at the courthouse as well. She is in the middle of the crowd there. Amelia, what are you seeing? What are you hearing? What can you tell us?
Well, Eden, we have seen people gather in kind of large groups on and off all afternoon. I'm not sure if my photographer, Sam, can kind of pan in here over my right shoulder. This is kind of what I'm talking about, just larger crowds gathering, just really sharing their reactions with one another about the verdict, potentially about what they believe is happening inside the courtroom as journalists like our Fox 4 Lori Brown is sharing updates, and then the journalists on the ground are sharing updates. You might see a lot of cell phones up in the air. We know that social media, this case has really taken on a life of its own online. And so a lot of people are live streaming right now. They were live streaming before that verdict was issued, and they've kind of been live streaming ever since. Now, there are a couple of Collin County Sheriff pickup trucks and squad cars here. I have not seen any clashes with law enforcement. As you heard my colleague Alex Boyer say, the supporters and people who have gathered here have really respected law enforcement. Law enforcement has not had to kind of come towards the crowd, say anything. We haven't really even seen them interact much, but they do have a presence here, clearly, and they have created this barrier between the sidewalk here and the parking lot and the front of the Collin County Courthouse. I have been talking to people, and they shared their reaction with me after that verdict was issued, and one man told me that there is no winning on either side of this. Take a listen.
I just tell people this, man, is until you've been in this situation, you don't know how anybody's feeling. You know what I'm saying? And it's not, this is a no-win situation on either side. You know, you have a child that is not going to be here anymore. God bless his family. And to the family who's going through this situation with their son, it's unfortunate.
We are hearing some, like Alex was talking, upset comments. We know that this trial, no cameras were allowed. It was not live streamed. It was not televised. But as someone who was in the courtroom every afternoon to hear testimony, I know that the journalists I sat next to, we were doing our best to share accurately what we were hearing and what we were seeing inside that courtroom. And the jurors were tasked to take all of the evidence that they heard in that testimony to come to this guilty murder verdict. Now, I'm not sure what people are waiting for out here. Obviously, we know that the punishment phase of the trial is going on right now. I'm not sure if they're waiting to see if any of the family members are going to talk or if any of the attorneys are going to talk. I haven't really had a chance to ask, why they are staying here. All I know is that they are, and we've just seen more people arrive to the parking lot. For now, Eden, that's what I'm seeing live out here. Back to you.
And again, we should note that Karmelo Anthony faces anywhere from 5 years to 99 years in prison. As Amelia mentioned, no cameras allowed in the courtroom. So we've had crews all over. We've had our Lori Brown inside of the courtroom. We've had Amelia Jones outside of the courthouse and Alex Boyer. So really, they have tried their best to share what both sides are arguing, what the defense is claiming, what the prosecution is claiming, and trying to paint the picture of what all is going on there. So as this case prepares for the punishment phase, Fox 4 is, of course, committed to keeping you up to date. We're going to be live on the Fox Local app when there is an update, so make sure that you turn on your notifications to receive the update right to your home screen. We will be right back.
Let's see if there's any updates from reporters inside the courthouse. Latest from Marianne Martinez. No, it's just the same thing. She said lawyers have raised the issue of sudden passion. If the jury find that sudden passion fits this situation, then they can give him between 2 and 20 years. I don't think the jury is going to go for that, though. They were already given the option this morning of charging him with manslaughter instead of murder, which also carried up to 20 years, versus the murder charge that carries up to 99. They obviously looked at that, declined that. So I would think they would apply the same logic here, but I don't know. Exactly, Bruce. Exactly like that. The lack of live streams doesn't bode well for there being any sort of action tonight. There's no one on the ground ginning people up. I seriously think they've decided Karmelo is not their guy this time.
Vehicles on fire, houses on fire. This is no longer a peaceful protest. It's now escalated into serious disorder, as was feared at the start of the night. Belfast is used to having this almost like an annual event around this time of year where the protests escalate into serious disorder. Sadly, we're now seeing this as darkness falls. The fear always was that this could escalate slightly with smaller but more concentrated and concerted efforts by certain individuals to just escalate this even further, as we are seeing. The police will be stretched tonight going across Belfast itself, dealing with pockets of disorder, but they have the resources. They are well used to dealing with serious disorder in Belfast. They have the tactics and the vehicles and the officers to deal with it.
Well, National Weather Service
they are, as every police force in the UK is, short of numbers.
Yes, let's just look at some of the pictures we've had in so far this evening, which is an escalation, despite the very specific use of language by the Assistant Chief Constable Ryan Hannison in the latest statement from the PSNI of sporadic pockets of disorder. One is a house that's on fire. Now, I mean, this is when it starts to spread to streets like this, you're putting people out of their homes. And the other one was a retail space. There are flats above it as well. Clearly people have to be evacuated, or those flats have to be evacuated. And that's when it becomes no longer, some pallets on fire, which we saw earlier, bins on fire, some vehicles on fire. This is now people's properties and their lives being challenged here.
Yeah, definitely. Lives at risk here by what we're seeing. Properties on fire, vehicles on fire, outside properties. So people's lives and livelihoods are definitely at risk here. This is where we're seeing it escalate. And the fear was, as darkness fell, we would see an escalation in disorder and violence with properties and vehicles being set on fire. Wait to see now what happens in the next hour. There's a number of yous out on the streets in different pockets, and the police are experiencing serious disorder. The fire service are working hard to extinguish some of those fires, but they can't be all over the city. It is a large city and requires a significant number of resources to deal with these incidents we're seeing. The bus you can see now, that's from much earlier on. That was one of the first things we saw. There's a bus next to, I think, like a residential block of flats. That burnt through, as we saw earlier on. That was set alight. You could see the bins being literally put against the bus to catch the bus on fire. We saw individuals moving those bins up against the so it would actually ignite the bus. And that bus, I think, is burnt almost to a cinder.
Yeah,
that was much earlier, about 2 or 3 hours ago.
Start a fire.
Stretching, no doubt, for the police. Graham, stay there. Let's bring in Alison Morris, crime correspondent for the Belfast Telegraph. I mean, this will be depressing, won't it, for those political leaders who've called for calm. How stretched will the police service of Northern Ireland be, do you think, as we watch these scenes this evening?
Well, yeah, and I'm reporting from a car because I've basically been in North Belfast, where there's roads closed. There's a huge police presence in that area as well. Your correspondents are in East Belfast. We've seen disorder in South Belfast. And ironically, I was at a policing conference last night with the Chief Constable and Deputy Chief Constable when they were talking about public confidence in new policing in a post-peace process Belfast. And within an hour, we left that conference at about 9 o'clock, and we know this horrific attack happened at 10:30. Police are really, really stretched because the people who organised these protests made sure that geographically they put them in all different parts of not just Belfast but across Northern Ireland, and that meant that police resources would have to be moved around from place to place. And as we've seen, it's now changed to blocking roads, which was what was happening earlier on this evening, to attacking properties of homes where people are pointing out where foreign nationals live. And we know that the man who was attacked is recovering in hospital. He has very serious life-changing, life-altering injuries. And ironically, it will be foreign nationals who will be at his bedside looking after him. People who I hope have a home to go home to when they finish their shift this evening.
Alison, very good to talk to you. Perhaps we'll talk again later. And obviously, good luck in your car and trying to make your way around.
I moved somewhere quiet, but there's just blue flashing lights everywhere. So.
Well, that's it. And as you suggested, this geographic spread of disorder makes it very difficult for people, doesn't it? Let's bring in the former First Minister of Northern Ireland, Baroness Arlene Foster, who's well known to this show quite clearly. Arlene, the latest statement from police, we're again appealing for calm and ask all voices of influence within local communities to encourage peaceful protest and discourage any involvement in violence or disorder. So what is your message tonight?
Well, it's with great sadness. I've been watching the pictures from Belfast, from Portadown, from Ballyclare, where violence is happening right across Northern Ireland. And as the leader of the DUP, Gavin Robinson, has said in a tweet that you referenced just a few moments ago, this is not only wrong, of course we condemn the violence completely, but it's entirely counterproductive. I mean, if these people are genuinely concerned about immigration issues, this takes the whole spotlight away from that issue and onto the violence in their own communities. They're destroying their own communities. I know the Newtonards Road very well, and they're a working class community. They have a tough,
White Seed Street? I did not.
They have this violence going on.
Is it worth a good laugh?
Houses being burnt. My goodness, how absolutely dreadful. And young people are going to end up with criminal records again. And the people that are causing this violence and moving the protest from a peaceful protest to a violent protest have a lot of responsibility on their shoulders. So, of course, I call for calm, not just calm, but I call for young people to go home. The peaceful protest has now turned into violence. And unless you want a criminal record, you need to get home right now. I have to say as well, I listened to the Chief Constable today, a Chief Constable of a police force who finds itself often in the middle of everything, having to try to hold the line, having to try to keep order on our streets. And he's right to say that immigration issues are not a matter for the police. They are a matter for the politicians. And the politicians really have to not just listen and acknowledge the concerns that there are right across Northern Ireland, indeed the whole of the UK and Ireland at the moment, but they have to then take action to do something about these dreadful, dreadful crimes. I cannot even comprehend what happened in North Belfast last night when I hear the injuries that this gentleman has had and who's in hospital. And of course, we think particularly of him and his family tonight. But the police are in the middle of all of this, and they're the guys that are trying to hold the line, and it's very, very difficult, Hannah.
And in terms of, the cause of the protest, the incident last night, but general frustration too. There was a DUP urgent question, which John Craig talked about earlier, asking for uncontrolled immigration to end. Another unionist MP talking about an alien culture. So what is the immigration pressure on Northern Ireland now? And is there concern about the porous border with Ireland?
Well, there has been concern about that porous border for some time now, and it's in the public domain how this gentleman actually travelled. That's my phone going off. How this gentleman actually travelled across from Sudan, across Europe, into Dublin, and then on a bus up to Belfast without any checks taking place. And I think that is a matter of grave concern. So what people want to see happening now is a way in which we deal with our common travel area, which we have here and which has worked very well for people right across the UK and Ireland for many, many years now. But it's allowing a back door into the UK through the Republic of Ireland, and therefore that needs to be...
Believe this is new. U.S. Central Command forces began launching self-defense strikes against Iran at 5 p.m. Eastern today at the Commander-in-Chief's direction in response to yesterday's downing of a U.S. Army Apache helicopter. The mission is a proportional response to unjustified Iranian aggression. Self-defense strikes.
And we do need to have a mature conversation about the European Convention on Human Rights. Anytime the ECHR is mentioned, people go into a flurry, particularly when it's mentioned in the House of Lords, and Labour ministers will say, under no circumstances will we leave the ECHR. Well, I don't think that's where the people of the UK are at anymore. They want a discussion about this. They want to know what the consequences are of leaving, of staying, and they want a mature debate about it, and not just dismissed out of hand. And it's long past the time when people who raise issues around immigration are dismissed as racists. I think it's so disrespectful. They need to be listened to. They need to be acknowledged. These are people with genuine concerns, Anna. These are not racists. And I thought Mervyn Gibson, who's a senior member of the Orange Institution here in Northern Ireland, made a very good point earlier today. And it's something that
did we miss a chase, or is that...
This isn't about race. It's about immigration. There's a lot of people working in the NHS.
How did we miss a chase? Chat, what the hell, chat? This is how it ended.
Camulus Street and Garnet. This again is in the Boyle Heights area. Another stop sign. Oh, losing control and slamming into a wall, getting out and running. We see that person right there running in the white T-shirt. Seems to have some kind of a hoodie or sweatshirt in their arm, but they are running. And we didn't see how close the law enforcement was right behind this driver, but looks like he's running and no officers nearby. Fortunately, you know, he's running by these cars. Oh, he's got a gun out there. You see that right there? He's got a gun. He's firing shots right now. Looked like he was firing.
I do believe the police emptied their chambers into him after that.
That suspect is down right now. Impossible to tell exactly if that person was, in fact, hit by officers' gunfire, but we did see that person, after they crashed, pull out a gun.
Yeah, let's go back to him pulling out the gun.
And no officers nearby. Fortunately, you know, he's running by these cars.
So he's just
he's got a gun out there. You see that right there? He's got a gun. He's firing shots right now. Looked like he was firing, and that suspect is down right now. Impossible to tell exactly if that person was, in fact, hit by officers' gunfire.
I believe he was hit.
The alleged perpetrator came from, the travel route, because before that was hidden information. And after the Southport attacks, where the void was filled with speculation and falsehood, then the policy has changed on that. And John, that raises all sorts of questions for the politicians, doesn't it? That this information we now know.
And that. Hang on, got a better view here. I don't know if he was iced. He gets up. He was definitely hit, but he gets up. He's not feeling too good, though. I think maybe he has his tummy hurts.
wide open this whole debate
He
about
needs some
immigration
milk.
policy. Nigel Farage, who last week, of course, was bitterly criticised, not least by the Prime Minister, for talking about pure cold rage over the Henry Novak case. Today he was talking about indefinite leave to remain being dished out like Smarties, he said.
Well, leave to remain, he said.
Leave to remain, I beg your pardon, yeah.
Which obviously then leads to somebody after 5 years being able to stay permanently in this country, which is something that the politicians are now looking at.
They are. And I've taken the trouble to study all three policies.
I don't know if I saw this one earlier. This is video from Nick Sorter outside the courthouse after the verdict was read from earlier. Or maybe, is this new? Oh, this is just posted a few minutes ago. This might be new.
See how I freedom of speech, you can't control it. And you don't get why we fighting each other. I'm on your side. I want Karmelo free, not locked up. So why am I sitting here fighting you? Why is another black man arguing with a black man? Why are you out here calling people niggas and degrading each other? Like they want us to. It's like some of us out here more so not to. Let me tell you why. That's the best time for you. There's some clout-chasing, trolling motherfuckers out here. That's why.
Y'all, they laughing at y'all. The enemies who y'all need to be arguing with, they right there. They watching y'all, they recording y'all, they laughing at y'all. Y'all they I got my bottle. The enemies right there. Look, he's smiling. Looking at y'all laughing. Fuck him.
Yeah, we laughing.
Exactly. Why y'all getting consumed by me? You shouldn't be worried about me. You ain't gotta worry about me. Ignore me. Focus on justice. Don't worry about me, lady. Don't worry about me. I ain't gonna shut up for shit, little ass girl. You got to talking to me now.
I slapped that motherfucking phone out your motherfucking face. Fuck you.
I do.
He said it would be stupid to do that. And of course, this attack comes just 24 hours after the president told us they could be just 2 to 3.
All right, guys, we really don't have any more streams. Let me look a little bit more, see what's going on.
To fund ICE and CBP, and we have learned that the House has passed the reconciliation.
I guess we're funding ICE.
Your screen coming from Bill Malusian saying, breaking, the House just voted 214 to 212 to pass the Senate's reconciliation bill to fund ICE and CBP with $70 billion over the next 3 years. The bill will now head to President Trump's desk for signature. Every Republican present voted yes. Every Democrat present voted no. Rep. Kevin Kiley of California, who is an independent, voted no. So after weeks of setbacks and delays, the Republican-controlled House today narrowly passing that roughly $70 billion package to fund ICE and Border Patrol through the end of President Trump's term. That vote was 214 to 212. The package, also known as the Secure America Act, did clear the Senate last week, and now it does head to the president's desk for his signature. The successful House vote ends months of drama and fighting over immigration enforcement funding. Back in February, Senate Democrats had
most of the
voted to
Belfast
shut down
streams
DHS after the fatal shootings of two American citizens, Renee Good and Alex Preddy, during the immigration operations in Minneapolis the previous month. So once again, this breaking news coming in as the House has just voted 214 to 212 to pass the Senate's reconciliation bill to fund ICE and CBP with $70 billion over the next.
All right. Well, guys, wait, what the hell? I believe that'll be the end of the stream. If anything happens later, I'll hop on. I mean, you know, there's a chance we get the verdict, or not the verdict, we get the sentencing guidelines today. I don't really foresee anything happening, though. If it does, I will get back on tonight. But I probably won't see you guys until next time. Have a great evening. Goodbye.